Have you ever been with a group of friends and someone mentions something about bugs? Like maybe they just found out their dog has fleas, or maybe they learned there's a head lice infestation at their children's school, and all of a sudden you can literally feel thousands of them crawling over your body? Or have you ever had a dream that you've been bitten by a bug who's laid eggs inside of you, and now they're hatching and trying to get to the surface? I remember when I was a kid, I used to have this dream about getting bit by a giant tarantula who laid her eggs inside me. And to get them all out, they made me lay at the bottom of a swimming pool, holding my breath, watching as thousands of them came floating out through holes in my skin until they covered the entire surface of the water. Dang, I can still picture it. Can you? Well, then this story isn't going to help. And make sure you watch it to the very end, because you're not going to believe a treatment a doctor ended up using. Hello. For as long as I can remember, I've been fascinated by weird events that seem impossible but are true. And that's what this channel is all about, bringing strange, unbelievable stories to you once a week. So if you're a fan of the mysterious, the inexplicable, the unbelievable, but true, subscribe, give me a like, hit the notification button, and I promise, with every new video, I'll do my best to keep blowing your mind. While on a tropical American vacation, 12-year-old Brianna, her mother Joy, and father Todd spent their final day enjoying the attractions at a nearby water park. And the day couldn't have went any better. It was sunny, the temperature was warm, the view was beautiful, and they just had a ton of fun taking part in as many activities as they could, while also enjoying the food and each other's company, before having to head back to New York the next day. So it was no surprise to Joy later, after they'd returned to the rooms, when Brianna began to feel a bit tired and complained about a pain she was feeling in her head. Joy, believing it likely that her daughter had just received a bit too much sun, nonetheless checked her out, and sure enough noticed a bit of redness on Brianna's scalp. But nothing else. But like every great mom, feeling a bit concerned, she wanted to have her feelings confirmed. So she took Brianna to a local doctor, just to make sure everything was okay. After examining Brianna, the doctor agreed with Joy. He also noticed the redness in her scalp, and believed she just got too much sun, and now was likely suffering from dehydration. So out of an abundance of caution, before discharging her, he put her on an IV drip for a couple of hours, just to replace the body fluids he was certain she'd lost, feeling that this had to be behind her source of pain and discomfort. Then Joy and Brianna left. The next morning after they woke and just before they were due to get on the plane to fly back home, Joy checked on Brianna's sunburn again. And this time she noticed that a series of about 20 bumps had appeared on her daughter's scalp. A bit alarmed, she felt certain now that this wasn't just a simple case of sunburn causing her daughter's pain. And immediately, all she could think about was getting her daughter home so she could be seen by a doctor. Joy had no idea of what she was about to learn and what she was about to witness. On the plane ride home, Brianna began to complain that her head was really hurting her, and she was feeling a lot more pain. So Joy laid her on her lap, and then after parting her hair, saw that some of the bumps had opened and were now oozing blood and pus. Frightened, she showed them to Todd, who was shocked. To him, it looked for all the world like his daughter's head had been stabbed repeatedly with a pencil, and now the holes had become infected. So together, the two of them took clean napkins and began trying to clean up the area. But as they did, it only alarmed them more. The moment they landed, they jumped into the car and drove to the nearest emergency room, where a young dermatologist on staff, a Dr. Kavita Mariwala, examined Brianna. After speaking with the young girl and her parents, it became immediately clear that Brianna was in a great deal of pain, and that all of it seemed to be focused on only the one specific spot on her head, the area where her parents had noticed the marks. So Dr. Mariwala bent over and began parting Brianna's hair to examine her. She said, "My eyes were drawn right away to these little shallow-like erosions in her scalp, but when I looked at them closely, they moved up and down. And then after looking at the lesions longer, I bent down. I was maybe 2 inches from her scalp, and this was the sound I heard." The doctor mimicked the sound of chewing. Something buried deep beneath the young girl's scalp was eating away at the flesh on her head. And that's when she says she knew something is really wrong here. She said, let's see what's actually here. And so I gently placed forceps into one of the holes and then slowly pulled them back out. And when the forceps went past the skin surface, that's when I realized there was a larva on the end of it. I had actually pulled a living thing out of the hole. It was wriggling back and forth. It was still clearly very much alive. And all of a sudden it became crystal clear that there were many, many more in there. Joy, fighting back tears, said, I'd never seen anyone pull a worm out of someone. It was traumatizing, especially because it was my child. Dr. Marijuela immediately sent the larva for testing and soon afterwards was able to diagnose Brianna. I told the family Brianna's head is infested with New World screwworms. Joy and Todd were shocked and immediately frightened for their daughter's life. Todd said, the only place I'd ever seen larvae before was in a trash can. This was just the most bizarre thing I'd ever heard. Screwworms, Dr. Marijuela explained, are the larvae of the Cochleomya hominid oryx fly, and inside their daughter's scalp, the larva's powerful jaws were quickly eating through her flesh. A biologist, Dr. Dan Raskin, says that unlike other types of larvae, screwworms have a taste for living flesh. So instead of eating dead tissue near the surface of a wound, they burrow deeper and deeper into their host, looking for more fresh meat, and that ultimately, untreated, screwworms kill the host. Joy said the doctor told us the worms would eat through her eyes and into her brain, and the thought of them going through her beautiful eyes, I just couldn't lose her. To save Brianna, Dr. Marijuela knew it was a race against the clock. She had to remove all of the larvae as quickly as possible. And what she attempted next is unbelievable. But I promise you, it's true. She tried something she'd only heard about when she was in medical school. She said, using the principle that these larvae are looking for raw meat, or raw flesh, we decided to wrap Brianna's head with raw bacon. Unbelievable. Unfortunately, though it did seem to work, the effect it was having was much too slow. So instead of trying to lure the larvae to the surface, Dr. Marijuela decided to try something entirely different. She wanted to try suffocating them. So she applied a thick layer of petroleum jelly over the entire affected area, making sure to cover each hole. And the treatment worked. As soon as the larvae would come to the surface for air, they get stuck in the jelly, which Dr. Marijuela would then wipe off and reapply. In all, over the next 3 days, Dr. Marijuela would have to put a new layer of jelly on Brianna's head every few hours until all the larvae had been removed, as leaving just one behind could result in horrific damage. In total, she removed over 200 larvae, which was far more than she'd ever expected. Brianna's parents said that they were both amazed and mind-boggled at the final count. But as Dr. Raskin explains, New World screwworms mainly infect cattle and deer, with the female fly laying as many as 400 eggs at a time. And when the eggs hatch, the results are almost always catastrophic.